The USS Liberty moved through the dark space between stars like a small silver fish swimming through an endless black ocean. Commander Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge watching the stars through the main screen. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but she did not notice. The ship's sensors had picked up something strange 3 days before, and they were still trying to figure out what it was. Captain Jake Sullivan walked up to her holding a datapad. His face looked worried. "Commander, we have confirmed readings. Now, there are 7 ships out there, and they are big. Really big. Each one is at least 3 times the size of our ship." Lisa took the datapad and looked at the numbers. The ships were not just big, but they were also moving in a perfect formation. No human fleet moved that perfectly. "Are they responding to our communication attempts?" "No, ma'am. They just keep coming toward us. Our linguists have been trying every known language pattern, but nothing works. The ships do not match any design in our databases either." Lisa nodded and handed back the datapad. First contact with an alien species was something every captain dreamed about and feared at the same time. The Liberty was an exploration ship with only basic weapons. If these aliens were hostile, then the Liberty and her crew of 200 people were in serious trouble. How long until they reach us? About 6 hours at their current speed. They could go faster if they wanted to. It looks like they are taking their time. Lisa walked to her captain's chair and sat down. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew something important was happening, but they stayed calm and did their jobs. That was what Lisa liked most about her crew. They were professionals who could handle anything. "Jake, get Dr. Amy Foster up here. If we are about to meet aliens, then I want our best medical officer ready. Also call Engineer Pete Morrison to the bridge. I want all department heads here for this." "Yes, ma'am." 20 minutes later, the senior staff stood around the main screen, looking at the alien ships. The vessels were strange and organic looking. They seemed to pulse with a dark red light that made them look alive. Dr. Foster studied the images with scientific curiosity, while Pete Morrison shook his head in amazement. "I have never seen ship designs like these," Pete said. "The hull material looks biological, like they grew these ships instead of building them." Dr. Foster nodded. "The energy readings are unlike anything in our records. These ships are producing power in ways we do not understand." Lisa studied the alien vessels and made her decision. "We follow first contact protocols. All weapons systems stay on standby, but do not target the alien ships. We broadcast our peaceful intentions on all frequencies. If they want to talk, then we will talk. If they want to fight, then we make them regret that choice." The next few hours passed slowly. The alien ships continued their approach while the Liberty's crew prepared for contact. The communications department worked on new translation programs. The medical bay got ready for possible alien visitors. The security teams checked their equipment without making it obvious they were preparing for trouble. When the alien ships finally stopped, they formed a circle around the Liberty. Each ship was massive and dark, with that strange pulsing red light, running along what looked like veins in their hulls. The smallest alien ship was still twice the size of the Liberty. "Commander, we are getting a signal. It is not audio or visual. The aliens are using some kind of energy beam to transmit directly to our computer systems." Lisa felt her heart beat faster. "Put it through the translation matrix and see what we get." The bridge filled with a sound like metal scraping against stone. Then the universal translator began working, and words formed. "Small vessel. You will prepare to receive representatives of the Kefir Empire. Resistance will result in the immediate destruction of your ship and all life aboard it." Jake looked at Lisa. "That sounds like a threat." "It does. But we follow protocol. Send a response that we welcome their representatives and will receive them in our main cargo bay. Make sure security teams are in position, but tell them to stay hidden unless I give the word. Yes, ma'am? 30 minutes later, the alien transport materialized in the cargo bay. Lisa stood waiting with Dr. Foster and 2 security officers who tried to look relaxed. The transport was a ball of dark metal about the size of a small shuttle. It made no sound as it hovered 3 feet above the deck. The transport opened like a flower, and the aliens stepped out. Lisa had seen many strange things during her years in space, but the Kethvar were unlike anything she had imagined. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with bodies that looked like they were covered in natural armor. Their skin was dark and seemed to shift colors in the light. Each alien had 4 arms, and their heads were elongated with multiple eyes that glowed with orange light. The lead alien wore what looked like a crown made of metal and bone. She moved with the grace of a predator, and her multiple eyes focused on Lisa with obvious intelligence. When she spoke, her voice was like the sound of wind through a cave. I am War Princess Zarathic of the Kethvar Empire. You will identify yourself and explain why your species has not already surrendered to our authority. Lisa stepped forward and gave a slight bow. I am Commander Lisa Martinez of the human ship Liberty. We come in peace and seek understanding between our peoples. The War Princess made a sound that might have been laughter. Peace is a concept for the weak. The Kethvar do not seek peace. We bring order to the galaxy by conquering all who stand before us. Your species will submit or be destroyed. We would prefer to discuss this situation and find a solution that benefits everyone. Zarathic moved closer to Lisa. Up close, the alien was even more intimidating. Her armor-like skin had patterns that seemed to move, and her eyes never stopped, watching everything around her. There is nothing to discuss. The Kethvar have conquered 47 species across this galaxy. We have turned 12 worlds into ash when their populations refuse to submit. Your small ship and weak weapons cannot stand against our might. Lisa remained calm and kept her voice steady. We understand you are powerful, but perhaps there are other ways to resolve this situation without violence. The War Princess studied Lisa for a long moment. Her orange eyes seemed to be looking for something. Fear, maybe, or signs of weakness. But Lisa had commanded ships in dangerous situations before, and she knew how to project confidence even when she felt uncertain inside. You speak of alternatives to violence as if you have a choice in this matter. The Kethvar decide what happens here. Your role is to obey or die. War Princess Zarathic walked around the cargo bay like a hunter examining its prey. Her 4 arms moved with purpose, while her multiple eyes studied every detail of the human ship. The other Kethvar warriors spread out behind her, their weapons ready but not yet aimed at the humans. Lisa watched the aliens explore her ship and noticed something strange. The Kethvar seemed confused by what they were seeing. They had clearly expected something different from the humans. Their body language suggested they were looking for signs of fear or panic that were not there. Your crew continues to work. As if nothing has changed, Zarathic said. Her voice carried a tone of annoyance. Do they not understand that their lives hang by a thread? Do they not know what the Kethvar do to species that resist us? Through the cargo bay windows, Lisa could see her crew at their stations on other decks. Engineer Pete Morrison was still working on the warp core calibration he had started that morning. Dr. Foster's medical team continued their routine health checks on the crew. The bridge officers maintained their watch schedules without change. My crew are professionals, Lisa replied. They understand the situation, but they also have jobs to do. A ship does not run itself. The War Princess made that sound like laughter again, but this time it held less amusement and more frustration. In every other species we have encountered, the mere sight of our ships causes mass panic. Populations flee their cities. Leaders beg for mercy before we even make contact. Your people act as if we are simply visitors. Lisa nodded. That is because you are visitors. Dangerous ones perhaps, but still visitors on our ship. Zarathik stopped walking and fixed all of her orange eyes on Lisa. The temperature in the cargo bay seemed to drop several degrees. Dangerous visitors? Human, you have no concept of what danger means. The Kethver Empire spans 1,000 star systems. Our fleets have reduced planets to radioactive waste. We have species that serve us as slaves for generations because their ancestors dared to resist our will. That sounds like a difficult way to run an empire, Lisa said calmly. Fear-based rule tends to create more problems than it solves. The War Princess moved closer until she towered over Lisa. Her armor-like skin shifted to darker colors, and the patterns on her body pulsed with angry energy. You speak of our methods as if you have experience with empire building. Your species has barely left its home system. You know nothing of galactic politics or the realities of controlling multiple worlds. Lisa did not step back, even though every instinct told her to put distance between herself and the angry alien. We may not have an empire, but we do know something about controlling large populations and managing conflict. Impossible. Your species is too young and weak to have faced real challenges. Dr. Foster stepped forward from where she had been quietly, observing the exchange. Commander, perhaps our guests would benefit from learning more about human history before they make assumptions about our experience with conflict. Zarathik turned her multiple eyes toward the doctor. You think your primitive history lessons will impress the Kethver? We have studied the records of 1,000 conquered species. Every young civilization believes its small conflicts prepare it for galactic realities. Lisa looked at Dr. Foster and nodded. The doctor activated her datapad and projected a holographic display showing Earth from space. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and beautiful, surrounded by the darkness of space. This is our homeworld, Dr. Foster said. It looks calm from this distance, but appearances can be deceiving. The War Princess studied the image with obvious disinterest. A typical Class M planet with standard atmospheric composition. Nothing remarkable about it. Dr. Foster changed the display to show population density. Maps of Earth. Red areas indicated the highest concentrations of humans, while green areas showed lower populations. Almost the entire planet glowed red. Our world currently supports 12 billion human beings. They live in cities that house millions of people each. The logistics of feeding, housing, and managing that many individuals requires complex systems that operate continuously. Zarathik looked more interested now. 12 billion? That is a substantial population for a single world. How do you prevent them from destroying each other over resources? That is an excellent question, Lisa said. And the answer is that we do not always succeed in preventing conflict. Dr. Foster changed the display again. Now it showed historical maps of Earth with different colors representing different time periods. Red areas indicated regions experiencing warfare or major conflicts. Human history is marked by almost continuous conflict somewhere on our planet. Wars between tribes, nations, ideologies, religions, and resources. At any given time in our past, someone on Earth was fighting someone else. The War Princes studied the display more carefully. The patterns of conflict covered virtually every area of the planet across thousands of years. This shows local conflicts between primitive groups. Nothing comparable to galactic warfare. Lisa stepped closer to the holographic display. The scale may be different, but the principles are the same. Humans have always been very good at finding reasons to fight each other. Dr. Foster advanced the timeline to more recent centuries. The conflicts shown on the map grew larger and more devastating. 200 years ago, humans fought what we called world wars. These conflicts involved multiple continents and resulted in the deaths of millions of people. Zarathik's orange eyes focused intently on the new images. Millions? From a single conflict? The Second World War alone killed over 70 million humans. It involved weapons of mass destruction and tactics designed to eliminate entire populations. The War Princess was quiet for several moments as she processed this information. When? She spoke again. Her voice had lost some of its arrogant confidence. 70 million deaths represents a significant portion of your population at that time. Nearly 4% of all humans alive died in that conflict, Dr. Foster confirmed. And it was not the only large-scale war we fought. Humans have been very creative in developing ways to kill each other efficiently. Lisa watched Zarathik's reaction carefully. The alien warrior was beginning to realize that humanity might not be as naive about conflict as she had assumed. The interesting thing is that we fought these wars with weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Nuclear weapons, Dr. Foster added. Devices that harness the power of atomic fusion to create explosions equivalent to millions of EV. Tons of conventional explosives. Zarathik's armor-like skin shifted to lighter colors as her aggressive posture relaxed slightly. You developed weapons capable of destroying cities, and then used them against your own species? Twice, Lisa sighed quietly. And then we built enough of them to destroy our entire planet several times over. The cargo bay fell silent as Zarathik processed what she had just heard. Her multiple eyes studied the holographic display showing Earth's nuclear weapons locations during the height of the Cold War. Thousands of red dots covered the planet, representing enough destructive power to end human civilization many times over. You built weapons to destroy your own world, the War Princess said slowly. Then you pointed them at each other and waited. For 45 years, Lisa confirmed. We called it mutually assured destruction. If one side attacked, both sides would be completely destroyed. No winners, no survivors. Dr. Foster changed the display to show population centers and military installations. Every major city on Earth lived under the constant threat of complete annihilation. Children grew up knowing that war could end their world in 30 minutes. Zarathik's armor-like skin had shifted to colors Lisa had not seen before. Pale blues and greens that seemed to indicate confusion or uncertainty. Why did you not use these weapons? If humans are as violent as you claim, why did your species survive? Because we learned something important, Lisa said. Fear of mutual. Destruction can be more powerful than the desire to destroy your enemies. The War Princess walked closer to the holographic display. She studied the patterns of weapons placement and population centers with the eye of someone who understood military strategy. This configuration would ensure total global devastation. No nation could survive a full exchange. That was the point. We made sure that victory was impossible, so war became unthinkable. Dr. Foster added new information to the display, showing economic and technological development during the Cold War period. While we threatened each other with extinction, we also competed in other ways. Science, technology, space exploration, economic growth. We channeled our competitive instincts into areas that built rather than destroyed. Zarathik studied this new information with growing interest. Your species maintained this balance for nearly half a century without destroying itself. That requires a level of self-control that Kethver have not observed in other species. Self-control is one way to describe it, Lisa said. But it was more than that. We learned that our greatest enemy was not each other, but our own destructive impulses. Captain Jake Sullivan entered the cargo bay carrying a data pad. He nodded respectfully to the aliens before approaching Lisa. Commander, you asked me to prepare information about human military history. I have compiled some examples that might interest our guests. Lisa looked at Zarathik. Captain Sullivan is our tactical officer. He has studied human warfare extensively. Perhaps he can provide a different perspective on our experiences with conflict." The War Princess gestured for Sullivan to continue. Her orange eyes focused on him with the intensity of a predator evaluating potential prey. Sullivan activated his datapad and projected new images into the holographic display. Humans have been fighting organized wars for over 5,000 years. We have developed tactics and strategies that other species might find disturbing. The display showed ancient battlefields where humans fought with primitive weapons. Then it advanced through time, showing the evolution of human warfare from swords and spears to guns and explosives to modern energy weapons. What makes human warfare unique is not our weapons, but our psychology, Sullivan continued. Humans will fight for concepts that have no physical form, ideas, beliefs, principles that exist only in our minds. Zarathik leaned forward with increased attention. "Explain this concept warfare." "We have fought wars over religious beliefs where both sides worshiped the same God but disagreed about details of worship. We have fought over political systems where both sides wanted freedom but defined it differently. We have fought over economic theories about how resources should be distributed." The display showed maps of various human conflicts throughout history. Religious wars, political revolutions, ideological struggles that spanned continents and lasted for generations. Your species fights over abstract concepts rather than territory or resources. The War Princess asked. "We fight over those things too," Sullivan replied. "But yes, humans will die for ideas. We will sacrifice everything we have for principles we believe in, even when those principles provide no material benefit." Dr. Foster stepped forward again. "From a biological perspective, this behavior is highly unusual. Most species fight for survival, territory, or mating rights. Humans fight for survival and territory, but also for concepts that exist only in our collective imagination." Zarathik was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had lost much of its earlier arrogance. "The Cathver fight for conquest and the glory of victory. We understand these motivations. But fighting for invisible concepts suggests a level of mental complexity we have not encountered before." Lisa nodded. "Human psychology is complicated. We are capable of great cruelty, but also great sacrifice. We will destroy our enemies without mercy, but we will also die to protect strangers who share our beliefs." Sullivan changed the display to show examples of human military tactics throughout history. Humans have developed warfare strategies that prioritize psychological impact over physical damage. We understand that breaking an enemy's will to fight is often more effective than destroying their ability to fight. The images showed siege warfare where humans would surround enemy cities and wait for months or years until the population surrendered from starvation. They showed guerrilla tactics where small groups of humans would use knowledge of local terrain to defeat much larger armies. They showed propaganda campaigns designed to turn enemy populations against their own leaders. We have learned that the mind is often a more important battlefield than physical space, Sullivan explained. Humans excel at psychological warfare because we understand fear, hope, anger, and desperation from our own experience. Zarathik studied the tactical displays with professional interest. These strategies require patience and long-term planning. Most species seek quick victories through overwhelming force. Quick victories are satisfying, but they do not always solve the underlying problems that cause the conflict, Lisa said. Humans have learned that lasting peace often requires understanding your enemy's motivations and addressing their concerns rather than simply defeating them. The War Princess turned away from the displays and faced Lisa directly. Her multiple eyes seemed to be evaluating the human commander in a new light. "You speak of peace as if it is an achievable goal rather than a temporary pause between conflicts. 4. Humans, peace is both a goal and a constant struggle. We must choose peace every day because our nature gives us many reasons to choose conflict instead. Zarathic's skin color shifted again to deeper blues that seemed to indicate deep thought or confusion. This suggests that humans possess both the capacity for great violence and the wisdom to restrain that violence when necessary. We try, Dr. Foster said quietly. We do not always succeed, but we keep trying to be better than our worst impulses. Engineer Pete Morrison walked into the cargo bay carrying a toolkit and wearing his usual work coveralls. He had been working on the warp core when the aliens arrived and clearly planned to continue his repairs once this meeting ended. He nodded politely to the Kethver warriors and approached Lisa. Commander, I finished the power coupling adjustments you requested. The warp core is running at optimal efficiency now. He paused and looked at the holographic displays, still showing human military history. I see you are giving our guests a history lesson. Zarathic turned her multiple eyes toward the engineer. Something about his casual attitude in the presence of galactic conquerors seemed to irritate her more than the formal responses from the officers. You work on your ship's systems as if nothing has changed. Do you not understand that your species faces extinction? Pete looked at the war princess with the same expression he used when explaining technical problems to junior engineers. Ma'am, with respect, my ship needs maintenance whether we are facing extinction or not. A broken warp core will not help us in any situation. The alien's armor-like skin shifted to darker colors again. Your species displays a remarkable lack of appropriate fear responses. Every other civilization we have conquered showed proper terror when faced with Kethver might. Maybe those other civilizations had not seen what we have seen, Pete replied calmly. He walked over to the holographic display controls. Mind if I add something to this presentation? Lisa nodded, and Pete began entering commands into the system. New images appeared in the holographic space, showing Earth from orbit. But this version of Earth looked different from the beautiful blue and green planet Dr. Foster had shown earlier. This Earth was brown and gray, with massive storm systems covering most of the surface. This is what our planet looked like 200 years ago, Pete explained. We had poisoned our atmosphere with industrial pollution. The climate was changing so fast that entire regions became uninhabitable. Ocean levels were rising and farmland was turning into desert. Zarathic studied the images of the damaged planet. Environmental destruction from industrial development. We have seen this pattern in other species. Usually it leads to civilization collapse and population reduction to sustainable levels. That is what should have happened, Pete agreed. Our population was approaching 8 billion people. Our resource consumption was exceeding the planet's ability to regenerate. We were facing what scientists called a great filter event that would either force us to evolve or cause our extinction. Dr. Foster stepped forward to add medical data to the display. The environmental damage was causing health problems across the entire human population. Air quality in major cities was so poor that children developed lung diseases from simply breathing. Water contamination caused outbreaks of diseases we had eliminated centuries before. The display showed maps of Earth, with red zones indicating areas where human life expectancy had dropped below 40 years due to environmental factors. Nearly half the planet showed some level of red coloring. We were literally poisoning ourselves. To death, Pete continued. But instead of accepting extinction, humans decided to change everything about how we lived on our planet. The display began showing the transformation of Earth over several decades. The brown and gray planet slowly returned to blue and green as massive environmental restoration projects changed the atmosphere and oceans back to healthy conditions. How did you accomplish this transformation? Zarathic asked. Her voice had lost most of its earlier aggression and now carried genuine curiosity. Pete smiled with the pride of an engineer discussing a successful project. We did it the same. Way humans solve all impossible problems. We refused to accept that it was impossible, and we worked together until we found solutions. The display showed detailed information about the technologies humans had developed to clean their planet. Atmospheric processors that removed industrial pollutants from the air. Ocean filtration systems that restored marine ecosystems. Energy. Generation methods that produced no harmful waste products. The engineering challenges were enormous, Pete explained. We had to redesign every major industrial process on the planet. We had to develop new materials, new energy sources, new manufacturing methods. We had to change how 12 billion people lived their daily lives. Sullivan added tactical information to the display. The most impressive part was not the technology, but the coordination. Every nation on Earth had to work together on these projects. We had to stop fighting each other long enough to save our planet. Zarathic's orange eyes widened with what might have been surprise. Your species achieved global cooperation while facing extinction? The Kethver have observed that most civilizations fragment under such pressure. Fear and resource scarcity typically lead to increased conflict. We tried that approach first, Lisa admitted. The early decades of the environmental crisis saw increased warfare as nations fought over clean water, fertile land, and breathable air. But we learned that fighting each other made the problems worse rather than better. Dr. Foster changed the display to show population and resource data from the crisis period. Human population growth slowed and then reversed during this time. Not because people were dying, but because we collectively decided to have fewer children, until we could provide them with a healthy world. The War Princess studied this information with obvious fascination. Your species voluntarily reduced reproduction rates to match available resources? This level of self-regulation is unprecedented. In our experience, we learned that survival sometimes requires sacrificing what you want for what you need, Pete said. Humans wanted large families and unlimited consumption, but we needed a stable planet more than we needed individual desires. The display showed the final results of humanity's environmental restoration efforts. Modern Earth appeared even more beautiful than the original planet, with carefully managed ecosystems that supported both human civilization and natural wildlife in sustainable balance. This transformation took over a century to complete, Pete continued. Multiple generations of humans devoted their entire lives to fixing problems they did not create so that future generations could have better lives. Zarathic was quiet for a long time as she absorbed this information. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before. The Kethver have conquered species across the galaxy, but we have never encountered a civilization that conquered itself. You faced extinction and chose evolution instead. Lisa nodded. That experience taught us something important about human nature. We are capable of terrible destruction, but we are also capable of incredible creation. The choice between those paths is always ours to make. The War Princess looked around the cargo bay at the human crew members who continued their duties calmly despite the presence of galactic conquerors. Her multiple eyes seemed to be seeing them differently now. Why? Aren't you afraid, human? She asked suddenly, her voice carrying a strange mixture of frustration and genuine curiosity. You have told me of human capacity for violence and destruction. You know we have the power to end your species. Yet you show no fear. Why? Lisa looked directly into Zarathic's orange eyes and spoke the words that would change everything between. Their species, because we have done worse. To ourselves. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. War Princess Zarathic stood frozen as the meaning of Lisa's answer sank into her mind. The other Kethvar warriors shifted uncomfortably behind their leader. They had expected many possible Responses from the humans, but not this quiet admission of self-inflicted horror. "Explain," Zarathik said finally. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Lisa walked closer to the holographic display and gestured to the images of Earth's transformation. "You asked why we are not afraid of you. The answer is simple. We have already faced our worst enemy and survived. That enemy was ourselves." Dr. Foster stepped forward and changed the display to show new information. Statistical data appeared showing human population numbers throughout history. The graph showed steady growth for thousands of years, followed by dramatic spikes and crashes. During the 20th and 21st centuries, humans have killed more humans than any other force in our history, Dr. Foster said quietly. Wars, genocides, systematic oppression, environmental destruction. We nearly drove ourselves extinct multiple times through our own actions. The display showed detailed breakdowns of human-caused deaths throughout history. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of millions dead from wars. Millions more from deliberate starvation campaigns. Entire populations eliminated because they belonged to the wrong ethnic group or held the wrong beliefs. Zarathik studied the data with growing amazement. These numbers represent a significant percentage of your total population at various time periods. The 20th century alone saw over 200 million humans killed by other humans, Sullivan added. We developed industrial methods for mass killing that were more efficient than anything nature could produce. Pete Morrison activated another section of the display showing technological development timelines. We invented weapons specifically, designed to cause maximum suffering rather than quick death. Chemical weapons that dissolved human lungs. Biological weapons that turned our own immune systems against us. Psychological torture methods that broke human minds without touching. Human bodies. The war princes looked at each human in turn. These soft-looking beings had just described atrocities that exceeded anything in Kethfor military doctrine. You created these horrors and used them against your own species? We did, Lisa confirmed. And then we looked at what we had become. And we made a choice. We decided to become something better. Dr. Foster changed the display to show the development of human rights concepts throughout history. Legal frameworks designed to protect individuals from their own governments. International laws restricting the use of certain weapons. Global organizations dedicated to preventing genocide and crimes against humanity. The most remarkable thing about humans is not our capacity for evil, but our ability to recognize evil and choose to reject it, Dr. Foster explained. We created systems to restrain our own worst impulses. Zarathik studied the legal and social frameworks humans had developed. You built institutions to control your own behavior? You created laws to prevent yourselves from doing what you were capable of doing. We learned that power without restraint leads to destruction, Sullivan said. So we created restraints on power. We built systems where no single human or group of humans could make decisions that would harm the entire species. The display showed examples of these systems in action. Democratic governments where leaders could be removed by popular vote. International courts where war criminals were prosecuted. Economic systems designed to prevent extreme wealth concentration that could destabilize societies. We made mistakes, Lisa admitted. Many mistakes. But we learned from each failure and tried to build better systems the next time. Pete Morrison added technical specifications to the display, showing modern human military capabilities. The weapons were advanced, but nothing compared to what humans could have built if they chose to prioritize destruction over protection. Modern humans possess the knowledge to create weapons that could destroy entire star systems, Pete said. We understand the physics, and we have the technology. But we choose not to build such weapons because we learned the difference between what we can do and what we should do. Zarathic's armor-like skin had shifted to colors none of the humans had seen before. Pale yellows and whites that seemed to indicate shock or awe. You possess ultimate destructive capability, but you choose restraint. This contradicts everything the Kethfer understand about the nature of power. That is exactly the point, Lisa sighed. True strength is not the ability to destroy your enemies. True strength is the ability to choose not to destroy your enemies, even when you have the power to do so. Dr. Foster stepped closer to the War Princess. What stops you from becoming the monsters you are capable of being? For humans, the answer is each other. We watch each other. We hold each other accountable. We remind each other of who we want to be, rather than who we might become. The display showed images of human cooperation across the restored Earth, cities where millions of people lived together peacefully. Scientific research stations where humans from different nations worked together on projects to benefit all humanity. Space exploration missions where crews represented the best of human achievement rather than human conflict. We learned that our greatest strength is not our individual capabilities, but our collective wisdom, Saladin explained. One human can be cruel, selfish, and destructive, but humans working together can choose to be kind, generous, and creative. Zarathic walked around the holographic display, studying the images of human civilization from every angle. Her multiple eyes seemed to be processing information in ways that challenged her fundamental understanding of how intelligent species behaved. The Kethver have built an empire through conquest and intimidation, she said slowly. We believed that fear was the only reliable method for controlling large populations. But you suggest that cooperation based on shared values is more effective than control based on terror. Fear works in the short term, Lisa agreed, but it creates resentment and rebellion over time. Cooperation works better in the long term because it gives everyone a reason to support the system rather than fight against it. The War Princess was quiet for several minutes as she continued studying the human data. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a tone the humans had not heard before. Uncertainty mixed with something that might have been respect. If what you have shown me is accurate, then humans represent something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that evolved beyond the need for external conquest because they conquered their own destructive nature. We are still learning, Dr. Foster said gently. Every generation of humans faces the choice between cooperation and conflict. We choose cooperation not because it is easy, but because we learned the cost of choosing conflict. Zarathic turned away from the display and faced Lisa directly. The Kethver came here to offer your species a choice between submission and destruction. But perhaps there is a third option we had not considered. Lisa smiled for the first time since the aliens had boarded her ship. We would be very interested in discussing a third option. The War Princess gestured to her warriors and spoke in the Kethver language. The other aliens lowered their weapons and stepped back. When she turned back to the humans, her posture had changed from threatening to respectful. We propose an alliance between our species. The Kethver will share our knowledge of galactic civilizations and advanced technologies. In exchange, humans will teach us what you have learned about cooperation, self-restraint, and the wisdom of choosing peace from a position of strength. Lisa extended her hand in the traditional human gesture of agreement. We accept your proposal, War Princess. Zarathic, welcome to the beginning of a new kind of galactic relationship.